Hey, what's going on YouTube? Slick Nick here. It is 3:08 p.m. on Monday, July 20th, 2020. It's my second live stream in a row on the same day. But if you haven't checked out the other video I did, it was regarding the Fetch Rewards app. So you can find more information on that. And also, I put other referral links if you're interested in becoming an Uber, Lyft driver, or even a Postmates driver. You can use my referral link to qualify for a bonus in the description box below. And also there's some other cool apps I have in there, the Fetch Rewards app, which I mentioned in a previous video, Cash app, and Get Upside, where you can earn cash back on gas at certain stations. So you can use my referral links there if you haven't signed up for those apps. Highly recommended. You can make a little extra. Helps both of us too. And also if anybody wants to donate to my Patreon account, you can do that in the description box below, or you can use the Cash app too. Anything contributed would be greatly appreciated to keep the channel going. So this video, I'm going to follow up mainly regarding here in California about AB5, Prop 22, and also COVID. Of course, for driving, I haven't been driving in a while because of COVID-19, even though us drivers are essential, but a lot of drivers don't want to drive right now. And apparently I don't blame them, and I happen to be one of those too, because we're growing to higher risks of being exposed to COVID-19. And apparently the rules that Uber and Lyft have, like shortening the Uber X and Lyft regular, for example, to 3 riders instead of 4, so this way they don't want anybody in the front seat, and XL to 5. I know they want to do it for distancing, but they technically cannot legally enforce that on our vehicle, because it's our vehicles. If you want to still take the full capacity, that's on the driver. More power to you. And also I wanted to point out about the AB5. Of course, everybody here in California, most people are aware of Assembly Bill 5, which is the gig worker law, which prevents employee misclassification. You can find a link in the description box below. There's a lot of people that have a lot of questions about AB5, and if you visit Rideshare Drivers United's website, I put a link in the description box below. You just scroll down and choose about AB5. It has all these questions. And one of the very common questions right now that's conflicting with everybody is about flexibility, saying if we're going to lose flexibility. And of course, AB5 does not. I repeat, it does not say anything about flexibility. So if Uber and Lyft, DoorDash, Postmates, whatever, if they still want their business model to have you drive whenever you want, where you want, you can still do that. They just have to make some modifications. That's all. And giving us rights, and they'll have to, and at least pay us a minimum wage guarantee. And so again, with the flexibility, the reason why Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash, Postmates, all those gig companies, the reason why they say they'll lose the flexibility is because they're using it as a weapon. It's a weapon for us. They're trying to make us believe that, so this way they can keep paying us less and controlling us however they want as independent contractors. And apparently being a true independent contractor means they are not to do controlling where we go using algorithms, and also they are not allowed to decide what our rates are if they're going to have us as independent contractors. We should be allowed to set our own rates. Speaking of which, in California now, Uber has now put a new feature in where us drivers, we can kind of set our rates with a multiplier. But of course, we may reduce the risk of other rides being requested because they're charging a lot, because most passengers will look for the lowest price. But it may also depend on the kind of car you drive too. If they're like, oh, this driver is charging a lot, but oh, he's got a nice BMW. Okay. But apparently I haven't really been able to put much of it to the test because I'm not driving right now until further notice, until things start to subside, like mask requirements get lifted for us drivers, because wearing a mask over time, you can end up inhaling additional carbon dioxide. And that's not safe when driving, because other drivers have gotten into accidents because of that. And in Prop 22, I want to update on Prop 22. It's this ballot measure that Uber and Lyft and DoorDash are sponsoring on the California ballot this November, which we have to defeat. The measure, they claim that they would guarantee us a minimum wage and a mileage reimbursement. And it says it's to protect flexible work. But this ballot measure is totally bogus because, as I mentioned, flexibility, AB5 or not, there's nothing in there about flexibility. So you could still have flexibility because Uber and Lyft need to allow flexibility for us because an AB5 does not restrict that. So in Prop 22, they say they're guaranteeing us mileage reimbursement and a minimum wage, but you know what? They're actually misleading everybody because if that passes, then if they wanted to pay us $5 an hour, they can do that, and then we would have no voice on the job. So if we defeat Prop 22, then AB5, they'll have to follow AB5, and then we get more protections, and there also would be probably less false reports because all those riders that make up reports just to get their money back here in California, they eventually that will become a thing of the past because the companies will not be able to afford to be buying all the stories. They'll need evidence because a lot of the reports they make are false, and they don't always. And there's this guilty until proven innocent. And constitutionally, the drivers are always innocent unless proven guilty. So I'm urging everybody, Prop 22, to vote no on Prop 22 here in California. Again, vote no on 22. It's costly to us drivers and it's misleading. AB5 gives us the protection. So if we get into a pandemic like we are right now, if it wasn't for AB5, we probably wouldn't get additional unemployment. Because right now we're getting PUA, pandemic unemployment assistance, which in other states gig workers are getting, which is better than nothing. And here in California, we're getting that in addition to regular unemployment. And then apparently July 25th, the pandemic unemployment assistance is set to end, and then it's back to regular employment. But right now in Congress, they are looking at possibly, we may have an extension on PUA, but probably in the next 30 days, we'll know more. Because right now, of course, Moscow Mitch and also Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, they both introduced stimulus packages again, like they did earlier, which is how we got the PUA and the stimulus check in the first place. Now, I've read about it that the one that Pelosi is offering is actually higher than what Moscow Mitch, oh yes, our crony Moscow Mitch is offering. And you know him with he's a corporation's favorite, and he's more favorable to the corporate, but Nancy Pelosi is more for the people. So apparently hers is probably the better deal, but it's all going to be up for debate. Now, she's proposing at least $500 extra for PUA, whereas the Republicans are proposing $200 extra. I mean, come on, seriously. 500. If they have to take it down to 600 or 500, that's one thing, but 200 extra per month, it's better than nothing, but still, seriously. Multi-billion-dollar corporations don't need all that money, even for the jobs, because they have enough money as it is. Making their budgets look good is not going to achieve anything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm still gonna just wait out as long as I can till the pandemic subsides. But we're still in July, but probably in the next month or so, we'll see where things are going. And also, if I didn't mention it on AB5, the Rideshare Drivers United website has more useful information, the most frequently asked questions, and you can click on it for an answer. It's a very helpful website, and also has a little tool in there too. You can file a wage claim. If you're here in California, you can file wage claims for any back wages you're technically owed by any of the gig companies, whether it's Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Postmates, Instacart, etc., etc. It only just takes a few minutes. You just need to look at some of your tax documents and any receipts that you have. You can just put rough estimates, anything, expenses, whatever you have, you can just put rough numbers in, and then the labor commissioner, it'll be forwarded to the labor commissioner. And speaking of labor commissioner, some fellow drivers out here in California have been getting have been getting updates. You know, the labor commissioner is starting to reach out to drivers, and eventually they'll probably arrange for hearings. And then any additional information they need, submit that to them. And also, very, very important here, so listen carefully, because this decision based on this following information will affect your future. So right now, Uber, for example, has made some offers to some drivers to settle the wage claims for like $1,000, even $1,500, or $4,000, and that's stupid. That's not enough. And one driver in San Diego just recently they offered her $6,000. That's the highest they went, and she was very desperate for money, so she took it. But here's what the consequences will be. If you accept their offer, no matter how big, even if it's six figures, this is why I'm stressing everybody, do not, I repeat, do not accept any offers from any of the gig companies you file wage claims against. You communicate everything through all the wages and everything through the labor commissioner. The labor commissioner is the one to take care of all that and make sure you get the top dollar and that you still have your rights locked in. Because what happened with this driver is, to get the money, she had to sign this non-disclosure agreement, which also included signing away. Not only did she sign away all her rights against Uber, but Uber also said that she will be permanently deactivated, which she was. So she is no longer a rideshare driver on Uber. So very important. Unless you absolutely mean it, I highly recommend everybody to not accept any offers from any of the companies. Reject all the offers. Tell them you're not interested. Then this way you retain your rights. And make sure you file a wage claim if you haven't with the labor commissioner. If you already did, that's great. Just wait until the labor commissioner reaches out, and then we'll go from there. But that's all I have right now with the wage claims going on in California, thanks to AB5, Assembly Bill 5. Let's see, nobody's in the house right now, huh? Well, of course, I'm still getting this going. Only one person in the house. Come on, let's get some thumbs up here. So yeah, so we got the wage claim. I got that covered, and I said that in about AB5 and the wage claims, extra information on them can be found in the Rideshare Drivers United's website. And basically that kind of gives you the idea about why Prop 22 is very misleading, because there's campaigns going out. They're going to be running misleading ads on TV, and I'll keep an eye out for any petitions. If I find any petitions to have Prop 22 revoked, or to any TV and radio stations to make sure they don't air that ad, I'll definitely make a video on that if I find any petitions going around, so we can make sure that this AB5 is fully enforced. Because right now, in the midst of a pandemic, we really need all the money we can get and have a sustainable workplace. And if you're doing this on the side part-time, you don't have to worry, because Uber and Lyft right now, let's say if they forced anybody to work schedules, they're going to fail, because apparently if drivers refuse and they deactivate drivers, they're going to eventually run out of drivers, and nobody's going to want to drive for them. So don't let anything they say about flexibility scare you. Remember, it's a scare tactic. It's one of their weapons. COVID Dara, our friend Dara K at the Rideshare Professor calls him COVID Dara. Don't pay attention to what he says or what anybody in the company says. Fight for your rights. Oh, and speaking of rights, if you remember the arbitration agreements, every time you accept terms of service, there's usually a clause in there regarding arbitration. The last time I accepted was back in the springtime, and here's very important for any of the companies. When you accept the terms of service, you're basically signing your rights, most of your rights away if something goes wrong. So in order to retain your rights, you need to opt out of arbitration. To opt out of arbitration, there is a tool in the Rideshare Drivers United's website, a link for Lyft and a link for Uber on how to opt out. It only just takes a few minutes. after you accept the agreement, you have 30 days from accepting to opt out of arbitration. And you do have a right to opt out of arbitration. They cannot penalize you or do anything to you for opting out. You opt out, you get more power to you, more protection if something goes wrong. So and also with the other gig companies, if they don't have some of them you have, like Postmates, you have to actually send them a letter. You can do a Google search for templates, and then you have to mail them an opt-out notice. And that's what I did. I mailed them a letter to their legal department that I'm opting out of the arbitration agreement. You have 30 days to do that after you agree. But also, when you opt out with Postmates, you have to mail the notice by priority mail. But I did find it would be nice if you can just do it online, but apparently I had to do it by letter. But with Uber and Lyft, when you opt out of arbitration, you can do it through your email. That's what I did with Uber. The directions are on the Rideshare Drivers United's website, so you can find that in there, and it's in the description box below. While I got the page up, I have the website Rideshare Drivers United up. You can also sign up to get updates from them, and also it has the links at the bottom of the main page for the Uber opt-out and the Lyft opt-out of arbitration. So this way, because by law, you are protected by law. So if you opt out of the arbitration, they can't do anything to you, because you are invincible by law if you opt out, if you know what I mean. So this way you don't waive your rights. Okay. And submitting a wage claim. Yeah, and if you submit a wage claim through Rideshare Drivers United's website, the link to the tool is on the front page. It's very straightforward, step by step. Everybody in California, I highly recommend it. And in the next year, who knows, we might, or if you've already opted out a different way, that works too. But we want to, because you're owed thousands and thousands, all of us billions of dollars as a whole right now. There's a lot of, everybody's hurting for money right now, and we can't let any of these companies take advantage of you. That's totally not right. That's how people are going into poverty and having to work into overdrive just to make ends meet. So yeah, if you go on the website, it does have our Bill of Rights that we're demanding, like fair pay, and like the fair pay, for example. I'm going to read it here on Rideshare Drivers United's website. You can click the link in the description box, like fair pay, for example, capping the commission that Uber and Lyft, whatever the passenger pays, capping the commission at 10% and paying us per mile and per minute rate en route to a passenger. Some markets, I think, on Lyft are starting to do that. And at least, like New York City right now, they have a minimum wage of $27.86 per hour before expenses. So we want to get something like that here, and AB5 is what will help that. And also gas price index surcharge and fares, and then showing the drivers the estimated fare payment of the trip and destination before accepting, which apparently Uber already does that right now. When you get a ride request on Uber in California, it tells you the destination and the pickup and usually how much you're estimated to make. So if you want to avoid those super long rides that may catch you off guard, or if the ride's too short, more power to you. You can decline it or accept it. But apparently it doesn't work in LAX for a regular UberX, because apparently at LAX you're picking up the passengers using a code normally. So if you have to use the code, anything can catch you off guard. So be prepared for that. When COVID hit, I stopped doing pickups when I was still driving. I would only do drop-offs to the airports. And also we're trying to fight for, having AB5. If we defeat Prop 22, we still have a voice on the job. So this way we can fight for our rights, and then we can organize without being retaliated against. licensed. And then this would, and having community standards, of course, they need to make better community standards. As I mentioned, one of the things that happens a lot is that riders make up false reports that normally would be violations of the community guidelines, making up stories of stuff that had never actually happened just to get their money back. And apparently they're abusing this power. If AB5 is finalized and Prop 22 is defeated, the gig companies will most likely, they may stop doing that, which would benefit us, because then the passengers are like, oh, let's mess with this person's livelihood. Let's get our money back. Not so fast. Sooner or later, that's all going to backfire on them. So yeah, that's another reason we got to make sure we defeat Proposition 22. Because if we don't defeat Prop 22 and it passes, we're still going to be getting screwed one way or the other. And also the algorithms that they're doing, like Uber, for example, you haven't seen on one of these other videos, the Rideshare professor Torsten did a while back, was regarding surge pricing. Of course, surge pricing is triggered by an algorithm, so prices go up in certain areas when the demand is low and the passenger demand is high. And in the Los Angeles region, South LA and some southern parts of the county, for example, are examples of where it surges a lot, because a lot of drivers don't drive in that. And apparently, many of you may not know, a lot of those areas have different minorities, like different ethnic groups are in that area, and there's not as many drivers that drive in that area. So what Uber is doing, of course, what they were doing seems discriminatory. And I recommend checking out the Rideshare Professor's channel. He's got a video about that. He can tell you more about than I can. But I did watch his stream on that. So having AB5, if the companies would follow AB5, then the chances of those happening may go down too, because they won't be able to gouge on passengers. And they may claim that rates are going to go up super high. Well, they may go up a little bit, but not by that much, of course, because these companies are multi-billion-dollar companies. So with these multi-billion-dollar companies, they can afford to do better. And of course, when we did the strike, when we've had those strikes, the strikes have made a difference, sending a clear message that we're not joking around. So that's another reason we got AB5 in the first place. We've asked for it. That's what we're getting. And again, I have to keep stressing this. Flexibility is not in jeopardy. AB5 does not say anything about that. And it's to give us more protections if something goes wrong, and to guarantee us a minimum wage, and they would be open to negotiating with the companies. So that's pretty much sums up. That pretty much sums up it. So remember, enforce AB5. If you haven't done so already, if you're here in California, make sure you get the wage claims filed. The sooner, the better. But you can go back to 3 years. So right now, 2017 has been 3 years from this point of 2017. It's very easy to do. It only just takes a few minutes, but very important, if you're going to do it if you drive for multiple companies, you need to choose which company you have to do each one individually. Each company you drive for, you have to do an individual claim for each one. And then, of course, when the labor commissioner reaches out to you, I think that's when if we have a hearing, that's when we can adjust if necessary. But you got a good chance of this. We definitely can get this resolved if Prop 22 is defeated. California Prop 22, vote no on Prop 22. It's misleading, and it's going to be costly to the future of gig workers. So I'm going to leave it there. And also regarding on COVID-19, also I haven't been driving it because with the mask requirement, I may have mentioned that about the carbon dioxide when you're exhaling. But also there are also passengers that also are not wearing masks, and Uber now has a new option. Of course, I haven't seen it myself put to the test because I'm not driving, but if the passenger is not wearing a mask, you can cancel the trip and tell it that they're not wearing a mask. But if you fall into that situation, for any of those that are still driving out there, of course, I don't recommend anybody to drive right now. But if you got to do it, you do what you got to do. But if you're driving, if you're very important, first things first, when you see your passengers or possibly the riders approaching the vehicle, keep those doors locked. Do not unlock them. And make sure each person, every single person, except anybody under the age of 2, like infant babies, like a 1-year-old, for example, they're exempt from the mask rule. But make sure nobody is missing a mask. And when you crack your window open, when you verify the names, just make sure either your name or the passenger's name, one of those 2 names has to come out of the passenger's mouth. That way you know the rider is correct. That means we got the correct riders. But before you unlock the doors, make sure they got their masks on. No mask, no ride, no exceptions. If you choose to take them without a mask, that's on you. And please follow the guidelines of somebody, whatever. Do not take more passengers than seatbelts. Well, that's a normal, but right now you have to -1 because of the COVID. But when some of these rules start to lift, I'll be getting back on the road eventually. And also, passengers are making up false reports. So if you ever have to cancel because a passenger doesn't have a mask, make sure, I repeat, make sure you immediately or ASAP make a report to Uber or Lyft, whichever platform this took place on, and make sure you screenshot if you have to document everything. So you can let them know the passenger didn't have a mask, because some riders are making up false reports in retaliation to get a free ride or get their money back. And the drivers are being penalized for it. So it's very important you make sure you get a report as soon as possible, and you have a greater chance of surviving the attack. So yeah, so you got that. Hope everybody got that. Very serious. Make sure if you see no mask on the rider, politely ask them, and otherwise, if they don't, make sure you politely decline them because they didn't have the mask, that it's the rule. If you have a box full of those disposable masks and you want to sell one or give one, hey, they'll accept that too. But just use common sense out there, and always keep those doors locked until you know you got the right rider. Again, by either the passenger's name or the driver's name has to come out of the passenger's mouth, and also that they have a mask. And of course, they're technically nobody's supposed to be in the front seat, but if you still want to open, that's on you. When we're not in the pandemic, I don't really care if they sit front or back. So I want them to be comfortable, but just to be mindful. What else am I going to say about COVID? Yes, I know this COVID is taking a toll on a lot of people. And also, if you ever get any messages that the passenger says that they're COVID positive, I would just cancel those rides. I wouldn't take anyone with COVID. Never hurts to ask if they're free of symptoms. It'd be nice if we could do temperature checks too. But it's another reason I'm not driving, because riders may have COVID and not know it, or they may know it but don't care, and then we get infected. And riders, anybody that needs to get a trip to the hospital, if it's life-threatening emergency, or you're showing symptoms that you may have COVID-19, do not use our service. Do not use Rideshare. Rideshare is not for you. If you're in a life-threatening emergency, call 911 or find another way to the hospital. But don't use Rideshare to get to the hospital if you're sick. Seriously, it's a very serious matter here. So I hope everybody digests all this and takes this more seriously. So I covered the AB5, the misleading Prop 22, and also I've covered what's going on regarding COVID-19 on the gig work. Of course, if you're doing deliveries too, you also need to have a face covering as well. But if you're doing deliveries, if you're driving, then what I did was I just uncovered my face when I'm driving. But of course, if I'm dropping off to the customer, definitely put the covering back on until you drop them off. So yeah, I'm not going to be. So another reason I'm holding off is until COVID subsides. I'm going to hold off on the driving. Well, I've been on here almost 30 minutes now, so I think I covered a lot of info. Remember, check on the description box below. Referral links are there if you sign up for anything like the Cash App or the Get Upside to earn cash back on gas or other stuff, and the Fetch Rewards where you can earn points by collecting receipts. And I did a separate video on that. Or if you want to do rideshare driving, Lyft and Uber, I got my referral links there. You can earn a bonus, but it would probably be better to wait until things subside and get back to normal. Or if you want to do food deliveries too, you can also sign up for Postmates. I got a link in the description box below. And I did get my sign-on bonus too for getting a certain number of rides. All right, now I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. Everybody be safe. If you're sick, stay home. Don't go anywhere. Stay home if you're sick. Only go to the hospital if you absolutely feel like it's a life-threatening emergency, but make sure you do it by calling 911 if you're in that bad of shape. But do not use rideshare to get to the hospital if you're having any symptoms of COVID-19 possibly, or whatever it is, any symptoms. Do not use rideshare to go to the hospital. Big no-no. Because otherwise you're exposing the driver or other passengers that might eventually be getting into that vehicle. And a reminder, everybody, make sure you drivers fasten those seatbelts before you touch that gear shift, and make sure all passengers have their seatbelts on before you start that trip, and make sure that shoulder harness is on, because there are no exemptions to that rule. Passengers, when you get in the car, do not be looking at your phone. Your phone is off limits until that seatbelt is fastened and ready to go. As always, please tip your drivers. We're trying to be thankful they get you from point A to point B alive in one piece. Don't retaliate against them, and stop with these false reports, because how would you like it if somebody did that to you and then messed with your livelihood? As they say, karma is a bitch, and as Dustin says, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. All right, so 32 minutes. So thanks for watching. Be safe. Use common sense. Don't take crap from anybody. Don't forget your face coverings. And make sure you always wash and sanitize those hands. Seriously, after you use the restroom, wash those hands. Don't just put it underwater. Wash and soak those hands for at least 20 seconds minimum. And until next time, ride on, go out, turn on those apps, or don't. Anyway, be safe.